Thank you for coming back. Glad to see your ugly mug again.
Yeah,
There.
that's right. I thought about staying away, but then I was like, well, I've got nothing else to do.
Yeah, we haven't scared you away just yet.
No,
So
no,
that's good.
no.
Well, I wanted to pose the question of have you heard of the fight between the Mexican senators, but I guess at this point you you have. But anyway, apparently there were two senators fighting in the chamber, and it was over worrying about U.S. involvement with the cartel. So we'll.
I'm gonna tell you what. Like we were talking about before, back when I was a kid, even in that short period of time, people had a lot more decorum and respect for the offices than they do now. Things like this would have never happened. Even people who were at odds with each other could get along, not only on the floor, but after hours. And things have just, a lot of things like that have changed. People who can't get along out in the normal world, out in the street, that kind of behavior has filtered over even into politics nowadays.
Yeah, politics has always had a hostile side, but it is certainly much more pronounced, in my opinion, today than I've ever seen it before.
That's right.
Too. I mean, the level of hostility is, I think, beyond anything any of us would have imagined.
And to be honest, when you were telling me the story right before you told me where it was, I thought you were about to tell me that it was the United States.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know of any story where it's happened in our chamber, but I wouldn't be surprised.
At least we have a little bit of decorum left in the United States where we haven't actually gotten into fist fights on the floor.
Yeah. Well, not defending them or anything, but I would certainly be worried if I knew I was involved with a cartel and
I will say this,
the
though.
U.S. was coming.
One of the things I did see on the floor of the Senate the other day, Elizabeth Warren was backing up and fell over. I did see that. Now, nobody pushed her, but nice. She did fall.
I wonder, I don't know how old Elizabeth Warren is. I know Pelosi's in her 80s.
No. Honestly, they're all getting old now.
Yeah, they're all up there for sure.
When you make politics a career, you get older.
Yeah, and part of the problem with our system, I want to say, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's true that the longer they stay in power, the more powerful they become, because then they become part of different committees and subcommittees that I guess sometimes take several terms to materialize. So it's, I don't know. We've eventually got to figure out a way to make our system better.
No question.
Term limits for everybody. We eventually need to make that happen. But going back to the fight between the senators in Mexico, another thing that nobody ever talks about, everybody loves to point fingers at Mexico, but when there is a supply, there has to also be a demand. So if it were not for people demanding access to illegal narcotics, then there wouldn't need to be a supply.
That's right.
So we've, I don't know. I don't know if that's, I don't want to be negative, but I'm not sure how you fix how you can stop people from demanding something.
That's right.
Because if there's demand, there will be supply.
And I think that, personal responsibility goes a long way in this fight, and we have to, you're never going to curb that either. People are always going to be selfish. They're always going to be prideful. They're always going to be searching for things that make them feel good in some way. And regardless of whether it brings harm to them or not, they're always going to desire those things. Yeah. And it all boils down to personal morality and personal responsibility in curbing those appetites. It's not just those kind of appetites we have to worry about. It's all kinds of appetites that we have to keep in check.
Yeah, no, very true. Temptation is all over the place.
Amen.
the modern world, really, yeah, the biggest struggle in the modern world is the vast amount of temptation that everybody has to encounter every day, whether it be physical or narcotics or whatever. I mean, there's just, we might have it easier in terms of technology and economic opportunity, but it's much more difficult for people to maintain their discipline and ethics in today's world, in my opinion. But another big story that happened recently, unfortunately, this, I mean, not that that other one wasn't sad, but this one to me is even more sad. There was a shooting, I believe, just yesterday. I want to say, was it Minnesota or
It was Minnesota, yeah.
yeah, Catholic school shooting.
That's right.
I think, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, 19 people got injured, and 2 went to the hospital, something like that. But so I guess you don't really, it's hard to know what to say about these things. I'll just say that my prayers and my heart go out to them. Regardless, I'm a pretty pro Second Amendment guy, but you also have to admit that we certainly do have been seeing a lot of shooting incidents, and we've got to figure out something there. I hope that we can eventually have some sort of greater security presence, and that will deter some of these things from happening. But part of your responsibility, if you're a governing authority, is to be able to keep the people safe. So that sort of thing is unacceptable. We've got to figure something out on that. And of course, just like most others, I don't know what the answer is right off the top of my head, but I think we need to start taking those things more seriously. You can't just go into school or go in anywhere. You shouldn't have to worry about, a shooting happening. But again, I don't know what the exact answer is. I would just say we need to find some kind of way to beef up security presence. I don't know if that's AI and robotics. I'm sure that's going to be some of it, because I don't think we could ever have enough human personnel in place to stop that thing. At least not 24/7. But anyway,
let me begin by saying this: I'm not for curbing the Second Amendment in any way, shape, or form. To completely stop this problem would go back to the first thing we were talking about, is that you would have to change people's hearts and attitudes. If someone wants to inflict harm, they're going to find a way, whether it's knives, whether it's guns, whether it's homemade bombs, whether it's, whatever. People are going to find a way to do that. But because I saw a story just the other day, it's illegal to own a firearm in Great Britain. And there's been a huge rise in attacks with knives. Well, now they're starting to say that they should get rid of knives. You're not going to get rid of all sharp objects. It's also illegal to own a knife in prison, and yet they seem to get them there.
Yeah.
So
it's really easy to make shanks.
That's right. That's right.
I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I worked in corrections for a few years, and I don't remember exactly how often we would do cell searches, but they had to happen pretty frequently for that exact reason. I mean, I don't know why it's so easy. I guess because a lot of them have either some form of concrete or I can't even talk right, concrete or cement. I guess over time it just wears and chips away and makes it easy to turn a toothbrush into a shank.
Sure.
Speaking of which, I think one popular method is they would use these little hard plastic toothbrushes and they would shave them down until they were sharp.
Well, I have seen these little apparatuses that they sell for people who are out in the wild, who hike, those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And it's a little piece of elastic that fits around your index finger, and it has a brush on the end of it. And you can brush your teeth out wherever you are without having to carry a toothbrush with you. I think we need to implement these things in the prison system where they wrap these things around their finger, brush their teeth by putting their finger in their mouth with that brush on it instead of having a toothbrush. That would eliminate the toothbrush shank problem.
Yeah, that is a fair point. Although, I don't know. Well, some that tends to be a popular way for them to make shanks, but it's certainly not the only way.
Sure. Well, and you're also not going to eliminate, even though to a large extent they probably have with checks and everything, but you're still not eliminating contraband being brought into the prison either.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad you just said that, because another thing that I was thinking of was another thing that we had to start doing was people were putting stuff into baked goods and like they would bring them food that had, something that they weren't supposed to have in the bottom of the food. So,
that's right.
I mean, you see all sorts of crazy stuff.
A baked cake with a file in it.
Yeah. Well, I almost want to say it was like a casserole one time.
Sure.
That somebody put something in. So, but yeah, they'll try just about anything.
And that's on top of if you have a completely honest staff working for you.
Yeah.
A lot of the contraband being brought in is by people who are employed by the prison, who are getting kickbacks on that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think fortunately we didn't have much of a problem with that where I was, but the bigger the prison, especially once you start getting into state and federal, I think that becomes a much more common issue with those facilities.
Number one, you're going to have a limited amount of people who want to work in that environment.
Yeah.
So you have to try to find the good ones even out of the limited number that you have. Number two, just look at any other employer. The most amount of crime, the most amount of theft that is involved at any employer is from the people who actually work there. And again, you've got to change the hearts and minds of people to get out of that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hearts and minds, I guess, is, even though it's important, it's also the most difficult thing to change with somebody.
Sure.
And that's why we need the Bible. To me, the only answer is ever Scripture for doing that.
The human mind is a beautiful thing. It can think up all kinds of good things, but it's always thinking up all kinds of bad things to get around situations where, I don't have a weapon here, so what can I do to make one? And the ingenuity is there. People are, they're very good at coming up with ways to hurt others.
Mm-hmm. What was it Ryan said the other day in his sermon? The heart is, there's that common saying that everybody says, follow your heart, but the Bible tells you that the heart is wicked and that you shouldn't follow the heart.
Desperately wicked among all things. That's right.
Yeah. It's a common misconception that people have. You should want to feel and answer the Holy Spirit is what you should aim for.
That's right.
And it doesn't always feel how you would want it to feel. It doesn't always feel positive because, in my opinion, sometimes the Holy Spirit's chewing you out a little bit.
Sure.
But you just have to learn to accept when it is and move forward.
That's right.
So I say that to say it's not always a positive feeling, at least in my experience, but it's always useful. Like it tells you what you need to do.
That's right.
Or it tells you the ethical and biblical thing that you need to do. I know there was all sorts of news this week. I'm trying to think of what else crazy happened.
Federal Reserve and CDC.
But yeah, Federal. I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but
Federal. Kind of funny to me.
Yeah, it's a little bit funny. But not funny to the people it's happening to. But Federal Reserve governor got fired, right? and the CDC. Was it the chief of the CDC?
Yeah, I think so.
Jeez. So I don't know the exact reasoning behind. Like I didn't look up what the specific reasoning was on either one of those. Do you know?
I don't know the exact formal reasons that were put forward, but again, I mean, and I know that they held important institutions, but they're just like anybody else. If the president has authority over that and has the wherewithal to do what he feels like he needs to do, they're just like any other official. They have a boss to answer to. They have people to answer to. And if their direct head doesn't think that they're doing a good job, they can be replaced or let go.
Yeah. And I know, just from hearing Trump occasionally on the news that he's been pretty unhappy with the SEC or Jerome Powell and his staff. I know he's been frustrated with, although to defend them a little bit, interest rates are a tricky thing. And you also at some point have to be willing and able to trust your economic experts on those matters. Now it's just a tricky thing, because if you increase them too much, you can potentially really hurt the economy. If you lower them too much, inflation goes wild. So you have to find a way to strike a balance.
Her name was Susan Monterez, who was the director of the CDC. She was sworn in on July the 31st of this year, and
July 31st
has been let go less than a month into her tenure over a clash with Robert Kennedy Jr. over the vaccine policy changes.
And so was this the CDC or the Federal Reserve?
CDC. Here? This is okay. CDC.
Huh.
And she was fired over a clash with the Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy over potential changes to vaccine policy.
Yikes. A month in.
Less than a month in.
Less than a month. That is crazy.
And apparently, now I heard reports that she was, quote unquote, refusing to leave. And like we talked about earlier, that's not a big problem, really. It's not hard to get rid of people after you fire them. Sometimes they threaten little things like that, which is really kind of comical. Once your email gets turned off and you walk up to a door that your badge doesn't let you in anymore, the game's pretty much over.
Yeah. Unless some random employee comes along and
hey, could you open this door?
It's like, do I want to cause chaos today?
The old, like it is in the movies, the old cardboard box that the security guard brings down for you from your desk.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. But yeah, I don't.
And I tell you what, let's get into the Fed position that was let go too. What's your feelings on that?
On why she was let go, man?
Or in general about that position being let go?
That's one thing that I still need to do deeper research on, is looking up exactly what it is that the Federal Reserve governor is responsible for, because the one that you hear about most of the time is just your Jerome Powell type, like the top guy at the head of the SEC. I feel like I don't typically hear about governors a whole lot, and I can't remember exactly how many branches there are. I want to say maybe something like 12. So there might potentially be 12 of these governors out there. I want to say she's not I just got to do more research, because I don't know if she's the top governor or if she's like one of 12 governors or something like that. But I haven't heard a specific reason as to why she was fired. My only assumption at this point is because they were upset with Powell and couldn't get Powell to resign, that, I don't know, they're targeting them. But I'm sure there's more to it than that. I've just
There's 7 people on a board that are called governors.
yeah, that sounds right.
And one of those 7 was let go, and they're elected generally to a 14-year term, it says. And
14-year term.
Mhm.
Interesting.
and that they play a critical role in shaping the U.S. monetary policy for overseeing financial system.
Yeah. Well, maybe I guess my other guess would be she made some decisions that influenced interest rates that they're not happy with, maybe.
Right.
I mean, that could be the case.
And in my estimation, I'm not a financial guru, but I believe that Trump is right in his assessment that the rest of the world has decreased loan rates, mortgage rates. U.S. is the only holdout. Now, my question to that would be the same, just like Trump would, is
why are we the only ones?
Yeah. I mean, if we have the most robust economy in the world, even though we're $37 trillion in debt again, if we have the most robust economy in the world and all the rest have lowered interest rates, why have we not?
It's a good question that I do not have the answer. I'll be straight up. I don't have the answer to that. And I mean, well, I guess my only estimation would be fear of ramping inflation back up. So,
and you think about that, we're low men on the totem pole, or at least let me speak for myself. I am as far as richness goes and that kind of thing. You think about people like Trump and the rest of the billionaires in the world, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that you're talking about that they will lose by you not lowering the interest rate a point. When you talk about that kind of money, it's a huge deal.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 1% of billions of dollars comes out to a lot.
Yeah. It's enormous. It like I said, the biggest thing I've got is a home mortgage. It's not going to affect me that much.
Yeah.
But,
even if you have a fixed rate mortgage though, that can turn into a nightmare.
Sure.
Well, I'm trying to think of what the abbreviation for those are. ARM. If you ever see ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, in my opinion, you want to try to stay as far away from that as
I'm going to tell
possible.
you, those kind of things scare me. Now, I know sometimes that it can work to your benefit. However, you think about that, and I know you were getting to that point. If our economy just absolutely tanks in the next month and they jack your 30-year mortgage up to a 15% interest rate,
that can kill you.
Absolutely.
I mean, that can ruin you so much that, yeah,
you lose your home.
Yeah, lose your home and be homeless. That could absolutely ruin you. Especially if you have, anything more than a $100,000 to $200,000 home.
Yeah, I can't think of a time in my lifetime that I would have got up one morning and think, I wish I had an adjustable rate mortgage. I have never desired to have a loan that was anything other than fixed rate.
Yeah, no, it's not for you. It's not.
Now, if
they do that for them,
if I can always, and you can too. I mean, anybody can. If they drop where it's a significant amount, I can always go reapply for a loan.
Yeah.
I know it's a headache to have to go through that procedure sometimes. However, I think it's a lot safer.
Yeah, no, and if you're going to save 2% or more on your interest rate by refinancing or whatever, in my opinion, it is very much worth doing that, because you might have to pay a couple $1,000s or whatever to do that, but it's going to save you, especially over the course of 30 years, it's going to save you way more than that.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So yeah.
We talked about before just how much you save just by making an extra payment a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a big deal. But yeah, interest rates there's just no getting around it. They're always tricky. It's always a tricky thing to deal with in such a large economy.
And we talk about them like they're monstrous right now. They're not. They've been much higher before.
Yeah, they could be 10.
Yeah.
I'll
think about back during the Jimmy Carter years when they were really high back in the 70s. We're talking they're double digits, 10 or 12%, maybe sometimes higher for a home loan.
Yeah, I don't know how in the world people dealt with that back in
But think
those
about it,
days.
Kevin. Could you afford a home loan right now, 30-year mortgage at 10% interest?
Absolutely not. No way. No, I would be in full blown panic mode,
Yeah.
honestly. Now granted, I know that prices, were lower back then, but still 10% and above is hefty. I don't care what prices are. That's
And
a
people
lot of
did it.
interest.
I don't know how they did it, but I mean, the only thing back in the 70s, homes cost a lot less than they do now. So maybe
Yeah.
that was what saved everyone. But I can't imagine having let's say a $500,000 home.
And then 10% on
Oh my
that.
word.
Yeah, that would you'd have to be a surgeon, I would think, at minimum. A really
Yeah.
highly paid attorney or surgeon. Anybody below that would not be able to afford that.
It would definitely encourage people to save up and pay cash for things. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I mean it is good to pay cash for things when you can. The only hurts a lot of people is, can I pay cash for something and then still have enough cash on hand and liquidity to meet emergencies as they come up and that sort of thing.
Sure.
You always have to have some safety money, or in my opinion, it's a good idea. You don't have to, but it's a good idea to have safety money set aside in the event of emergencies. And paying for something in cash just for the sake of paying it in cash, if you're going to blow every dime that you have, is not a good idea in my opinion.
Like we've talked about before, again, I don't put all of my monetary belief system in Dave Ramsey. I think he has a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, same here.
When he talked about having a $1,000 emergency fund, I think that's a really good figure. Unless something really major happens, there's not a whole lot that $1,000 is not going to help you pay for.
Yeah. No, I would actually, when it comes to having money set aside, I would advocate anywhere from 10 to 30,000 having set aside.
Oh, wow.
I know I know a lot of people will hear that and be like, whoa, but with how expensive things have gotten, just for example, I don't know if I've told you guys this, but not too long ago, I had to deal with an issue with my roof. A new roof on this house. Granted, I got good quality shingles and whatnot, but that costs like $30,000. I mean, gone just like that.
I had to replace a roof and I had to pay 12 for it. And according to yours, I got a deal on mine.
Yeah, you did.
And no, your roof in that particular instance was probably bigger than mine. But
well, and I also I would, it shouldn't cost you that much to have a normal replacement. I think part of the problem with mine was, well, not I know I actually had some branches protruding through parts of my roof. I've got some giant pine trees in my backyard, and a couple of those branches in a storm broke off and tore up my not just the shingles, but the actual inner parts of some of the roofs.
And you think about that. This is, of course, the inflation over the years has changed things. But back when my parents were young, your roof cost more than my parents' first home.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I've told y'all this, but I think it was my mom that told me that my grandparents on her side, their first or second home was like, it cost like $10,000, and even back then they had to take out like a 30-year mortgage on 10. I mean, they were pretty poor.
Turnkey, 30,000. What'd you say? $10,000. $10,000.
Yeah, I wish I could remember what year it was built or whatever, but yeah, they had to take out like a 30-year mortgage on that.
And look, I've seen ads that I could pull up right now on Google, for brand new cars that cost like $2,500 or $3,000 for a new car.
Yeah. No, old car prices, everybody would love to have back. That and don't get me wrong, homes and stuff and real estate are expensive, but when you think about what car prices have done, it really does blow your mind how
Oh,
we've
it's
gone
incredible.
from 2,000 to 3,000 to new truck, a decent sized truck. I mean, you're looking at 40 to 50,000.
Oh, Kevin,
or 60 or 70.
Kevin, when's the last time you looked?
Yeah.
No, an F-150, and I'm not talking about
A nice one.
without, I'm not talking about without air conditioning or anything like that, but
Yeah.
you're looking between 60 and 80. And if you go to the really, really nice ones, you can get an F-150. The nicest F-150 you can get will almost cost you $100,000.
In the future, if you see me riding around on a donkey or something, don't judge me. We'll be on an electric scooter, not even the sit down one of the stand.
That's right.
A bike or a scooter is, I guess, where my future is.
Now I have, and it hasn't been long ago. It's really kind of around the COVID time when everything got boosted up. Really, prices had never come down in a lot of industries since COVID. The car industry is one of them. Shortly after COVID, Kevin, I moved out of the possibility, realistically, for me, to have a new car probably forever. I'm probably going to have a used car forever now. And it's not that I probably, I couldn't get a loan for one. I'm not willing to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not willing to pay the prices of what a new car costs now.
No, I 110% agree with you. And honestly, I wish more people had that attitude, because if enough people collectively decide that we've had enough, there's nothing that producers, manufacturers, they can't do anything about that. Supply and demand or natural law. If everybody collectively decides, no, that's too expensive, I'm not buying it, then they go out of, worst case scenario, they go out of business.
And that's what people don't understand. I feel like
consumers have more power than they think they do. A lot more power.
They do. And I think that that natural desire sometimes people have for new things is what's keeping the industry afloat. Because they're absolutely ridiculous. If people, like you said, if more people would band together on these things, there's power in numbers.
Yeah. A lot of power in numbers. And I think part of the problem too, and I'm not saying that we should do away with safety standards, but I've always heard part of what makes them so expensive is all the safety requirements that we have.
And the environmental requirements.
Yeah, environmental too, I'm sure. I know, for instance, that...
we were already supposed to spontaneously combusted by now, right?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. That's one, if there's anything that I'll lean a little left on, it's climate and stuff like that. But at the same time, everything's always about finding a balance. You don't want to spend so much on climate protection that it tanks the economy.
That's right.
Everything's got to be a balance. But and speaking of that, what is it? The catalytic converter, I think, has something like platinum or palladium or some super expensive metal is part of keeping those sustainability things in check, or making sure that the emissions aren't more than what they should be. Which, hey, if scientists say that it's important, then there's at least a degree of truth in that. And I'm not a climate expert, so I don't know. That's not something that admittedly I don't know a whole lot about. So we have to trust that they're telling us the truth, which sometimes they may not be. But it looked like you were about to.
Well, first of all, people who are in charge and supposed to be taking care of us would never lie to us. You know better than that, Kevin. And number two, no, I think we're along the same lines of thinking on, we need to be a good steward of the earth because the Lord gave it to us to take care of, for sure. There's no doubt of that. Most of the climate change the arguments are politically motivated.
Yeah,
out there
sure,
to try to control people. That's the ultimate goal. And many people have bought into the doom and gloom and the time period that is absolutely atrocious. That people say that we have to turn things around or we're all going to die.
Yeah. It was, they started saying like, at one point they were saying 5 and 10 years and stuff like that.
That's right.
I'm pretty sure that was more than 10 years ago now.
That's right.
I think people just, I think sometimes we get arrogant and we think that we are more impactful than we are. Because although, yeah, like we said, I agree that we should be more responsible and protect the earth and be good stewards like God would want us to be. But at the same time, the earth is a pretty decent sized planet. And I, you know, although we can harm it some, it seems to be pretty resilient, you know, although.
And guess what? The seashores, where we're on the East Coast and the West Coast, they still come up right to where they used to.
Yeah.
California's not covered over. Massachusetts is not covered over. Florida's not covered over.
Yeah, Florida and Louisiana, I feel like would be the first two.
That's right.
Two to go.
New Orleans is still there, and they're below sea level. So,
yeah. If New Orleans goes, that's one way we'd know. Like
that's
Katrina.
Right. That's right.
What was I going to say? Oh, to me, along those lines, though, the thing that I've found most concerning, well, two things that I've found most concerning over the years have been plastic buildup and coral reef destruction. To me, those are definitely two of the big concerns. I'm sure there's more concerns than just that, but we really do need to get a handle on those two things, because my understanding is those coral reefs are pretty important to wildlife, and obviously plastic buildup is bad for animals. It's bad for us, consuming microplastics and all that stuff.
Sure. I'm for whatever we can realistically do to take care of our planet, as long as it doesn't
destroy us
or hurt people. Yeah, that's correct. However, I don't know whose idea. It seems like it's a pretty bad idea. I don't know whose idea it was to start dumping garbage in the oceans. That seems like that's a bad idea.
Yeah, terrible idea. What? I don't know. Maybe where did you hear about that happening?
It's been happening for years until the. Now that is one good thing that some environmentalists did bring attention to. I'm talking about they would just load it up on barges and take it out and dump it.
You know what? Now that you say that, I think I do remember. There's no telling what the Mariana Trench. To the Mariana Trench, supposedly like Challenger Deep, the deepest point on the planet or something.
Yeah.
There's no telling what people have dumped there. But yeah, I don't know why people do that. And same thing with rivers. Like, why do people willingly dump away? It just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You know that we all need to be able to drink water, and even though we have filtering processes, it all gets recycled. So,
and how many industries either had runoff or dumped waste into our water system from mining and all those kind of things before there were regulations for that.
And uranium stuff to make nuclear bombs.
That's right.
Yeah, there's no telling what all kind of toxins of. Speaking of which, it's become a problem with just like eating fish. Like at different restaurants, those fish will have too many trace amounts of
mercury.
Yeah, all sorts of mercury. Mercury, I think, is a big one with tuna and maybe salmon, but and that's just one element. I know that there's others that people get concerned about too.
And you understand when these fishermen are catching these things out in the deep, deep sea, if they're contaminated, this stuff is everywhere.
Yeah. Yep. We don't know exactly how bad it is, I don't guess. But anyway, say all that to say that I hope we can strike a better balance in the future and figure out a way to be more responsible, but not bankrupt ourselves in the process.
That's right.
It's tricky. And I don't know exactly what the answer is. So,
Kevin, I got a question about you had mentioned earlier in the week about Japanese making an investment. What's the deal with that?
yeah. I want to say it was 500 billion, maybe, something like that. Something like supposedly they're supposed to have a $500 billion investment in the United States.
I see 550 here.
550. Okay, that sounds right. I think that was an agreement so that we would lower tariffs. I can't remember exactly what tariff rate we have on Japan at the moment, and man, I'm getting so sick of talking about tariffs, but we have to talk about it because it's an ongoing issue. But I must say this is another thing, and maybe plenty of people would disagree with me, but I mean, I get what we're trying to do. We're trying to make things more fair with other countries, or at least more fair on ourselves. But at the same time, I don't love the idea of levying higher stuff on, because I would consider Japan an ally nation. I would consider India friends and allies. And I think I saw where India's tariff rate got jacked up to like 50% or something like that. Now, me personally, I I wouldn't do that. I would never make that decision. Now, Trump and his administration may know more about that stuff than I do, but to me, 50% on anybody is, unless it's somebody like China or anybody acting in the role of an adversary. When we're talking about friends and allies, to me, 50% is too high.
Well, I feel like there's probably, and like you said, we don't know everything, but I feel like in this instance, that's more of a something's going on behind the scenes that we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that we don't know about. And I'm glad you brought that up, because along those lines, I saw another news story in relation to tariffs where it said that apparently $800 and under used to not face tariffs, but now they're enacting something that no matter what amount of money you spend or whatever product that you have shipped over, even if the value is only $800 or less, now those are also going to face tariffs. So I think,
well, that would, for that amount, it would have to be the vast majority of items now.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that is a really big deal, because you hear 800 and you're like, that doesn't sound like much, but multiply it by billions of items.
Sure. Well, I mean, you think about out of all the items that are bought,
most of them are below 800.
Yeah, you got to be talking about 99%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge ordeal. And I know that has made the leaders of some of those nations very angry, for sure. And I get that we want things to be more fair for us, but we really have to be careful here, because we do not want to turn the entire world against us. I mean, we need friends and allies. I get that we're a big country, we're a powerful country, but I don't want to alienate my friends. I don't want my friends to become my enemies, So fair treatment is good, but or like us being treated more fairly in commerce and economics is a good thing, but you also don't want to make it so bad that you alienate your allies. So I don't know, some of these decisions, but then again, granted, I'm not the president. So it's, like we just said, it's hard to know what they're thinking and what they know that we don't know when these decisions are made. But these are not decisions I would have made. Just want to say that. Sure. I was extremely disappointed to see. Well, I think the reason such a high one got levied on India, and I think I've said this before, is because of the purchase of Russian oil. But I think that, I don't know if it's the prime minister or the president, but the Indian prime minister or president snapped back to that comment, and he said, something like, well, the U.S. buys like uranium or something from Russia, which could be true. I don't. He might be right
Well,
about
yeah,
that.
because Hillary sold all of our uranium to them.
That wouldn't surprise me. But anyway, we'll just have to see what happens with that. But I would like us to treat our allied nations and our friends a little better. I think you can get carried away with things. So,
Well, there's also the flip side of that, in that, you get a reputation of being an ally. And again, these people are allies of the United States, no question about it. But you start these little slides where, and again, we have to look at it from the other standpoint too. How much tariffs are they putting on us?
yeah.
And
No, that's another part that I need to do more research on. I don't know exactly what other nations are levying on us, but
and it's I get the reasoning behind it. They're doing it for the same reason that Trump is they're trying to make things fair for their manufacturing in their countries. They don't want you bringing in goods that their country can produce if in the end run, if the end game is it's going to have their citizenry suffer by not having jobs, that kind of thing. Well, we're doing the same thing here. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're $37 trillion in debt, is that we don't have good manufacturing here because we're buying things from overseas.
yeah. Yep. And that's one thing that it seems like is starting to change. And like we talked about, that $550 billion potential investment from Japan is the administration is hoping that that's going to push more manufacturing back stateside to the United States. But I also saw an article shortly after that where it said that, and I think it might have been because of that $800 and below tariff, he changed his mind and wasn't coming to meet with them. So there's going to continue to be a lot of bickering there.
We talked about it several weeks ago, but that's also on top of the nearly $600 billion investment by Apple in manufacturing here.
Yeah. No, our own companies are certainly going to be investing here. It's just the only question is how many other nations are going to be investing their money in the United States.
Another headline you had listed here, global optimism over rate cuts, especially in Asia. It says, a dovish tone from Fed Chair Powell has fueled hopes for September rate cuts, pushing Asian indexes higher and supporting commodity prices. NVIDIA's results will be a key catalyst this week, it says.
Yeah, and our going back to the Federal Reserve and whatnot, they, I think, recently announced that everybody felt like there's these terms that they use, hawkish and dovish. If you don't know what that means, hawkish typically means that they're taking a more aggressive stance. Dovish means that they're taking a more, stand off, stand back, more passive, lowering. Dovish basically means potential lowering of rates. Hawkish means making them higher, basically. So
some of this stuff I don't understand, as far as I know that when you're dealing with huge sums of money, the less or the smaller divisions that you cut something is a bigger effect. However, I never have understood things like it was big news several weeks ago when the Fed cut the interest rate by a quarter point.
Yeah, you wouldn't think.
I mean, how was that even doing anything?
Yeah, but every little quarter of a point makes a really big difference. I think the only reason they always do it by such a tiny amount is I'm assuming it allows them to sort of see the ripple effect. They want to do it just a little bit, see what the ripple effects are.
Sure.
And then they can adjust it by a little bit, because I don't know, in the past, maybe they would do like a whole percentage point bump, but I think part of the fear behind that, or why they don't do that, is because they're afraid that the market is going to have too much of a negative reaction and we'd face a near-term crash.
Well, I can tell you this. If anybody, by any stretch of the imagination, connected to the Fed happens to be listening, I will clue you in on this. If you cut interest rates, people will borrow more money.
But yeah, no, they know that for sure. And that it's a well known thing that lowering rates equals businesses hiring more, making more investments. Really, the only reason that they raise them is to try to cool an economy off, and to stop. It's concerns about inflation. They don't want things.
I'll ask you this: do you see a reason? And we were talking about this a little bit before the show. Do you see a reason for having a centralized body that determines rate prices? Because we were talking about this a little bit earlier. What about competition? What if there's a group of banks that said, you know what, we're going to offer loans at 3%.
Yeah.
Now that would be great for consumers, but what is the downside of not having a centralized body that determines rates?
To me, the biggest downside would be that then there's nobody to put a cap on them. Like banks could decide, well, we only want to lend you money at 10%, 15%, 20, that would be
but to me, competition has always been a good thing.
Competition makes things better for sure.
As far as I think there's always a body of people that are going to be willing to give you a loan at a lesser rate. If you open it up, there's going to be some huge institutions that are able to give you a lot smaller interest rate, and they're still going to make money, and they're okay with that.
Yeah.
That I just don't see a downside to.
Yeah, no, in an ideal world, you would want just natural market forces to determine interest rate. I mean, in an ideal world, that would be the case.
More of a supply and demand type.
Yeah, when you leave people, we always think that we need to manage and micromanage everything, but there are certain natural processes and natural laws that tend to work themselves out.
Let me ask it this way. If we woke up tomorrow and suddenly there was no Federal Reserve at all, how would it change our world? Or how would it change the U.S. specifically?
I mean, if there was a lot of competition among financiers, it would probably again, I can't say for sure what the effects would be. So.
I guess let me ask you this way. What would be a major downside, even if it took years from now to happen? What would be a major downside if there was no centralized body deciding?
Well, again, the good scenario, like you were talking about, would be hopefully there would be enough competition to where interest rates would continue to be pushed down to reasonable levels. But I guess the nightmare scenario would be, like what I was just saying, they have so much power and a lack of competition that, hey, we're going to be like the credit card companies, you owe us.
So so somebody could become a monopoly in bank loans and that kind of thing.
That would be my worry. Yeah. And another thing that could cause that I think we need to do some checks and balances on, that it seems like we're not doing anymore. And this, don't get me wrong, this is a slippery slope too. And you don't want to break up companies just for the sake of, oh, they've gotten too big, we got to break them up. But we've talked about before, the S&P 500, it's like what, 30% is in
top heavy. Yeah.
So I mean, it's dangerous. And so at some point, as a government, you do have to decide, like, well, do we let these guys get infinitely more powerful? Eventually,
I can see that to a certain extent. I guess if you got one bank, let's say it's this is just for illustration purposes, but let's say it's Chase Bank. All right. Say they had 90% of the United States loans. If they did fail, that would be bad.
Yeah, it would be really bad.
But
now, I mean, granted, people would probably, you're always going to have people trying to lend money, so there's always going to be somebody rising from the ashes trying to loan people money.
And at the same rate, though, I get what you're saying about not having a Fed. It would really open up things to the richest people. whoever has the most money to loan is going to be able to offer it at the cheapest rates.
Yep. That's always, the more they have, the more advantage they have because they can outprice the competition. Yeah. That's
But at the same rate, honestly, in the retail world, I feel like that has made things good in the United States. I know a lot of people don't like companies like Walmart, Amazon, that kind of thing, but they've made things really good on consumers.
yeah. No, the economy is such a complicated thing because there's all these balances that you have to try to strike. And what I mean by that is like, yeah, it's nice as a consumer to have a location where you can get all your goods. But at the same time, if there's too few companies or too few corporations, then the few that exist have too much power, and that's bad for consumers. So it's like it's like a seesaw type,
Sure.
or like a scale.
Now, and
put
I
too
know
much
people
here and-
don't like to think about things like this because they like to think that all these companies are on the up and up, But I think maybe where you might be leading to, what's to keep these, say, 5 companies from getting in a meeting together and decide, hey, all of us together are going to up our prices tomorrow.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've thought about that a lot, and I'm honestly surprised that doesn't happen more than it does. I'm sure there are times where they have secret conversations that nobody knows about, where they're like, "Hey, we need to bump our prices up 10%,"
Sure.
like, especially after all this inflation that we've had recently. But
Right.
and I don't know. I mean, especially with how powerful companies are now, nobody can really stop that. Well, I'm not going to say nobody can stop it, but like we were talking about earlier, the only way to stop it would be for a bunch of people to be like, no, I'm not going to pay that.
And you think about,
Well,
one of the reasons that we have a lot of inflation and high prices on things, because people don't really pay attention and see that the government has a hand in a lot of these things. We pay a lot of a huge portion of our gas prices is because the taxes of the United States puts on fuel.
Yeah.
And those kind of things. They're getting, the United States has a cut in all these things.
Yeah. No, oh man, this is going to take me back to the tariff conversation. Part of my frustration with what you're talking about too, is they tax us from every single angle. So it's like, if you're losing money taxing us as much as you are right now, because we are, like, every quarter we're losing something like at least $1 trillion. Like we're spending more than we're taking in. I'm like, if you can't get it done with trillions of dollars, I just don't know what to tell you. Like, I mean, at some point you have to acknowledge that it's your own stewardship of things that are
absolutely,
that are messing things as.
And like we've talked about before, I'm not for not helping people who really deserve help. However, the entitlements in the United States are just completely out of hand.
Yeah.
And I think that there's not nearly enough oversight on those things. There's not nearly enough checks, imbalances on those things, people investigating and those kind of things. Yeah. Determining whether these people really need the money, or are they obtaining it fraudulently. Again, I'm not for taking benefits away from people who genuinely need them, but it would surprise you how many of the people who get them do not genuinely need them.
And unfortunately, and I could be wrong about this. I don't think that I am, but I would say the vast majority of people getting a high degree of benefits do not need them. Mm-hmm. I mean, we, even though people don't feel this way because of all the inflation as of late, everybody in this nation compared to most other nations would be considered a relatively wealthy person. I mean, when you factor in per capita average income, everybody in this nation is considered pretty well off.
No doubt.
So yeah, and people love to pick on welfare and the poor taking advantage of things, but to not pick sides here, and I'm trying not, even though I'm a business mind and I do want businesses to be treated fairly, they also should not be paying anything at all. businesses, especially brilliant business, they're always going to find a way to go find an attorney or an accountant and pay those guys to figure out a solution to their problems. So, and I think we've had this conversation before too. In my mind, the easiest thing to do, and it would make a lot of attorneys and accountants mad, I'm sure, but in my mind, what you have to do is put a flat tax on everybody, every single person in the nation of 10% or something like that.
Not only would it bring in, I honestly think it would bring in money more efficiently. It would bring in probably more money than we're bringing in now. And how can you not think that that's not fair? You know, the grandmother down the road that doesn't make very much money and the billionaire in our country would be paying the same percent. That's only fair.
Yeah.
And it's based on how much you have. That's only fair. How much you bring in.
Yeah. And I mean, billionaires will tell you, well, 1 billion. And I get what you're saying. Yeah. A billion's a whole lot more to pay than 1,000 or 100,000 or whatever. But like what you just said, fair is fair. I mean, an interest rate is, it's an exact measure.
And I'll tell you this, there would be far more people on the low end of the spectrum that were complaining than the big end.
Yeah.
It would shock you how many people in our nation don't even qualify to pay taxes because the amount that they make is not up to the amount that they even get charged.
Yeah.
And there's many people that don't pay a dime in taxes every year.
And the other thing that it's hilarious to me that the government doesn't realize this apparently, or they do and they just don't care, but this would make the IRS's job super easy because there wouldn't be a whole bunch of deductions.
That's right.
And different entities, different styles of corporations. None of that would be necessary after that.
You could literally get rid of about 90% of the IRS overnight if you just dropped a flat tax.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it seems like in life, the things that make the most sense, nobody wants to do.
The problem
you can't take advantage of that system is the problem.
The problem is the politicians know this, and they know that at least the first group of politicians, if they ever voted that into law, they would lose their job.
Yeah.
And that's what they're not willing to do.
Well, it's like I was saying, it would certainly make a lot of accountants and attorneys, I'm sure, angry, but I mean, I'm just going to say it. I don't care.
It would do away with a lot of those tax-based jobs. That's for sure.
Yeah. But just like they love to tell other people, you can find another job.
That's right. That's right.
We're talking about the best interest of the entire nation. I mean, and the other thing that I feel like people don't grasp the benefit of something like that would be now not only do big corporations have the means and the ability to innovate and invest in new things, but now you're also giving that same opportunity to small businesses, which if you empower small businesses, you're likely to see much more innovation and competition as opposed to only giving power and resources to very large corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's become a problem, not only with us, but probably nations all around the world, is you have your Amazons and Apples and Googles that have vastly more resources than everybody else. If you make it to where small businesses can't survive in your nation, then eventually you're going to have a corporate state. I mean, that's the only place that I know where that leads. And that's not something I want to think about, but I mean, sometimes it feels like we're heading in that direction right now. But
before we close out today, I wanted to ask about another of our headlines. AI stocks under pressure to perform. With AI hype cooling, heavyweight names like NVIDIA, Palantir, and Snowflake face a show me moment. Investors are demanding solid proofs of possibility and growth. What's your opinion of that?
Yeah, so I think what that's saying is that, and people love to use the term bubble, and I don't want to scare people, but I think part of what they're saying with that is that a lot of these AI companies get really hyped up, and sometimes the stock prices get pushed up so high because people keep buying the shares. Well, now everybody's like, well, I want to see where their earnings reflect the value of the company. So in other words, if the share price has been pushed up so much to where this company is now at $100 billion valuation, well, as an investor, I want to see where you're collecting $10 billion a quarter, well, or $10 billion a year to justify that. It's being able to justify that valuation. Like you can't say that your company, I mean, you can, because that's the weird thing about the stock market is, and that's why you sometimes have bubbles, is because people can push stock prices so high by piling into stuff. But logically, and you cannot tell me that your company is worth $100 billion when you're losing $1 million every year. You know, like you have to have the income coming in my mind, as an investor and an economics guy, you have to be able to justify your valuation.
It'd be kind of interesting. How do you evaluate the value of, say, Chat GPT?
Yeah, it's tricky.
Like if say, for instance, if Musk decided, you know what, I'm tired of competing with Chat GPT, I want to buy it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's been a lot of that going on now. I don't think anybody can afford Chat GPT probably, but except for maybe
and also what do you do if, and I know that there's a lot of engineers and that kind of things that are very talented on each of these platforms, but say you get somebody that is just revolutionizing, say one of the engineers revolutionizes and just completely leaps and bounds everybody else at Grok, say, and it's going to put all these others out of business if they're like significantly better than the rest.
Well, I mean, that is what typically happens over time is, you know, somebody's going to end up being the Apple of AI, I'm sure. There's going to be one company that probably does it better than everybody else. And and again, I'm a capitalist. I like capitalism, but just like everything else, it does have its problems. And one of those problems is that somebody's going to start becoming more powerful, and then to reward their shareholders, which they should do, they're going to start looking to merge and acquire other companies, and eventually, or if they're able to get away with it, that includes any competition that pops up, they're going to offer them a buyout. And if you refuse that buyout, they're going to try to destroy you. So, I mean, it's very, very dog eat dog capitalism is.
Sure.
But, and that's one of the downsides is those things can get pretty ugly. So yeah, I imagine, I don't know when that will happen in AI, like when we'll know who the it guy is, you know, the Apple, the Google, the whatever. Right now, at least with the United States, it seems like it's going to be Chat GPT, but we don't know that for sure yet. And I don't know who it's going to be in China, Japan, South Korea, you know, Russia, because it's also going to be a competition between nations internationally.
That's right.
It's going to be like another arms race, basically, to see who creates the best, most efficient, and the fastest AI platform. So
and
did I answer the? I don't even.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
And it seems like at least right now, the U.S. technology is taking the lead on that. The U.S.-based companies, at least in AI, and it may be because of money investment. It may be because of our internet here. It may be because of our hardware structure that we have with supercomputers and that kind of thing. We at least are taking the lead in AI development, wouldn't you say?
For the most part, I would like to say yes. Although, just like with everything else, China's always like right there.
Sure.
China's always right right there by us. So, like for instance, private and commercial drone technology, China has the lead on that, and that's not a good thing for us.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
need to fix that. But I think that we have the lead on AI, but it's close.
Yeah, yeah.
It's definitely an all out arms race right now, as far as I know. Now, I'm not an AI expert, so I'm sure and we tried to have a guest not too long ago. Hopefully we'll be able to have him back eventually, and he can probably give us more insight on that. We we tried to host a guest, I don't know, a month ago or maybe more, remotely, and couldn't get the software to act right. So once we get that down, we'll try to have him back. But yeah, I hope that we win the race, but it's going to be competitive. So
Sure.
for instance, I know I'm reading stories or articles right now where they're saying that a lot of these AI potential employees are being offered $1 million contracts just to sign on with ChatGPT or Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook. Like they're offering to immediately make them millionaires just to come and work for them. I mean, there's the competition for this is more fierce than anything I've ever seen in any other industry.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot at stake.
Yeah, and
sure.
And what is it to pay somebody $1 million if he's going to create something that can allow you to replace all of your employees?
Right.
That's another thing that you tech guys, I want you to understand that they're paying you to create everybody's replacement is what they're doing.
Sure.
I mean, saves you a lot of money if you don't have to pay employees.
That's right.
I mean, it's a dark thing to say, but I'm telling you, that's what corporations are thinking. Now, hopefully we're still a long ways away from that, but I mean, corporations have never cared about the average person. They're concerned about making money and rewarding their shareholders. And again, they should be rewarding their shareholders, but if AI gets to the point to where human employees are no longer needed, then we're going to have some problems that are going to have to be addressed.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that's about what we got for today. You got, trying to think, did we have any kind of scripture for today?
I don't think that we had one listed for today.
I was thinking,
and that's of course your oversight.
So. Yeah. It's my bad on that. I should have.
No, you're good.
I'll give us one next time.
You're good.
I think last time maybe we talked about Jeremiah 31.
We did.
I had something else in mind, but I just can't remember what it is right now. So I'll have it ready for our next episode. But yeah, appreciate you coming and enjoyed the discussion, and shout out to Jack, our producer. Appreciate you too. So
amen.